Hello there, and welcome to another journey into the peaceful mysteries of our natural world. Tonight we step away from the bright noise of day and enter a realm that most of us never truly experience: the forest at night. This is a place where silence has weight and darkness holds secrets that have been whispered between trees for centuries. As the sun disappears behind the canopy and the last golden rays filter through ancient branches, something extraordinary begins to unfold. The forest transforms. What seemed familiar in daylight becomes foreign, mysterious, alive in ways that daylight never reveals. This is not the same woodland you might have walked through on a sunny afternoon. This is a completely different world, operating by different rules, inhabited by different creatures, guided by rhythms that pulse in harmony with the moon and stars. Tonight we will discover what happens when darkness claims the forest. We will meet the creatures that emerge only when shadows deepen, learn about the sounds that echo through the trees when the world thinks it is sleeping, and uncover the gentle mysteries that unfold beneath a canopy of stars. Some of what you hear may surprise you. Some may comfort you like the soft rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. And all of it will remind you that even in our busy, illuminated world, there are still places where night reigns supreme and magic feels possible. If you find these quiet explorations helpful for winding down your day or drifting into peaceful sleep, feel free to like this video or share your thoughts in the comments below. It helps others find their way to these calm discoveries too, one restful soul at a time. But for now, let us begin our gentle walk into the nocturnal forest, where every shadow tells a story and every sound carries meaning. The moment the sun sets behind the tree line, a great awakening begins. While the day-shift creatures settle into their nests and burrows, an entirely different cast of characters prepares to take the stage. This changing of the guard happens gradually, like a theater, where one performance ends and another begins, without the audience noticing the transition. First come the sounds. As the last birds of day quiet their songs, new voices emerge from the gathering dusk. The haunting call of an owl echoes through the trees, a sound so perfectly designed for the night that it seems to emerge from the darkness itself. Deep and hollow, these calls serve as territorial markers, mating songs, and hunting signals, all woven into one mysterious melody that has accompanied human sleep for thousands of years. But owls are not the only musicians in this nocturnal orchestra. Listen carefully, and you will hear the gentle chirping of crickets beginning their nightly symphony. Each species has its own tempo, its own pitch, creating layers of sound that blend into what many describe as nature's lullaby. Scientists have discovered that cricket chirps actually change with temperature, becoming faster in warmth and slower in cool air. They are living thermometers, their songs a direct reflection of the forest's evening breath. In the undergrowth, small mammals begin their nightly routines. Mice scurry through fallen leaves with movements so quick and light, they sound like whispered secrets. Their tiny feet create the softest percussion as they search for seeds, berries, and the occasional insect. These small creatures live in a world of constant alertness, every sense tuned to detect the approach of predators who hunt by sound and scent rather than sight. The raccoons emerge from their daytime hiding spots with the confidence of creatures perfectly adapted to darkness. Their hands, so remarkably similar to human fingers, explore the night world through touch. They wash their food not out of cleanliness, but to enhance their sense of touch, water making their already sensitive paws even more capable of detecting texture and identifying objects. Watching a raccoon's hands work in the dim light is like witnessing a master craftsperson at work. Every movement deliberate and skilled. Deer step more cautiously through the nighttime forest, their large eyes gathering what little light filters through the canopy. These gentle creatures have learned to navigate by moonlight and starlight, their hooves finding silent paths through the undergrowth. When they pause to listen, ears swiveling like radar dishes, they become living statues, embodying the perfect stillness that night demands. The very air of the night forest feels different. Cooler, yes, but also somehow thicker, more present. This is partly due to the way sound travels in the absence of the thermal updrafts that occur during day-night air is more stable, allowing sounds to carry further and with greater clarity. The snap of a twig underfoot can echo for surprising distances, while the softest animal calls seem to float on invisible currents between the trees. As our eyes slowly adjust to the darkness, shapes begin to emerge from what first appeared to be impenetrable shadow. Tree trunks become visible as slightly lighter columns against the dark branches create intricate patterns against the star-filled sky. The forest reveals itself gradually, like a photograph developing in slow motion, each detail becoming clear only to those patient enough to let their night vision fully develop. This process of visual adaptation is one of the most remarkable aspects of experiencing the forest after dark. Human eyes, though not as perfectly adapted to darkness as those of nocturnal animals, are still capable of extraordinary sensitivity. When given time to adjust, the pupils dilate. Special cells called rods become more active, and gradually, the night world becomes visible in shades of silver and deep blue, rather than impenetrable black. But perhaps the most striking difference in the nighttime forest is the quality of silence. This is not the empty quiet of an unused room, but rather a living silence filled with subtle sounds that daylight drowns out. The gentle creaking of tree trunks as they sway in evening breezes, the almost inaudible whisper of wind through pine needles, the distant trickle of a stream that becomes more noticeable when competing sounds fade away. This silence has layers, like an invisible topography of sound and quiet. Close your eyes in a nighttime forest, and you can almost map the space around you by listening. The hollow echo that indicates an open clearing. The muffled quality that suggests dense undergrowth. The way sounds seem to come from specific directions, unblurred by the acoustic chaos of daytime activity. Many people find this nocturnal silence initially unsettling, so accustomed are we to the constant background noise of modern life. But those who learn to embrace it often describe a profound sense of peace, as if the forest night offers a refuge from the overwhelming stimulation of the illuminated world. Here, in the gentle darkness, the mind can slow down, thoughts can settle, and a different kind of awareness can emerge. The trees themselves seem different at night, more present somehow, more individual. Without the distraction of bright colors and busy activity, each trunk, each branch, each leaf pattern becomes more distinct. An oak tree reveals its massive, spreading architecture. A pine shows off the precise geometry of its needle clusters. A birch glows almost silver in whatever light is available, its white bark serving as a natural beacon in the darkness. These trees have been standing in this forest through countless nights, experiencing this transformation from day to darkness thousands of times. They have provided shelter for nocturnal creatures, filtered moonlight through their leaves, and stood as silent witnesses to all the small dramas that unfold when the human world sleeps. Their presence in the night forest feels both protective and eternal, like ancient guardians watching over a realm that exists primarily in shadow. The night forest operates on different principles than its daytime counterpart. Survival here depends more on hearing, touch, and scent than on vision. Movements are more deliberate, more careful. Creatures that might be bold in daylight become cautious and alert. Even the plants seem to respond differently, some flowers opening only at night to attract nocturnal pollinators, their pale petals and sweet scents designed to be noticed in darkness rather than bright sunlight. This is a world where adaptation rules supreme, where every creature has found its own way to thrive in conditions that would challenge those designed for daylight living. It is a testament to life's incredible ability to fill every available niche, to find opportunity in what might seem like limitation, to create beauty and function, even in the absence of light. As we continue our journey deeper into these quiet secrets, we begin to understand that the night forest is not simply the day forest with the lights turned off. It is a completely different ecosystem, with its own rhythms, its own inhabitants, and its own subtle magic that reveals itself only to those willing to slow down, listen carefully, and let their eyes adjust to the gentle darkness that holds so many peaceful mysteries. Mysteries. In the deeper reaches of the night forest, where even the faintest traces of human influence fade away, we encounter phenomena that seem to belong more to dreams than reality. Here, where ancient trees have grown undisturbed for decades or even centuries, the darkness takes on an almost tangible quality, wrapping around everything like a gentle, living blanket. The deeper forest holds different secrets than the woodland edges. Here, the canopy is so thick that even on the brightest full moon nights, only scattered patches of silver light reach the forest floor. These pools of moonlight create natural spotlights that illuminate small stages where the night's quiet dramas unfold. A family of opossums might cross through one beam, their slow, deliberate movements making them appear almost ghostly. A fox might pause in another pool of light, ears alert, before melting back into shadow with fluid grace. These creatures of the deep forest have evolved behaviors perfectly suited to near-total darkness. They communicate through subtle sounds that carry meaning across considerable distances. The soft hoot of a great horned owl is not random, but follows specific patterns that convey information about territory, availability for mating, and warnings to competitors. These calls create an invisible network of communication that spans the entire forest, connecting creatures who may never see each other, but who remain intimately aware of their neighbors' activities. The great horned owl itself is perhaps the most perfectly adapted night hunter in the forest. Its flight is completely silent, thanks to specialized feathers that muffle the sound of air passing over its wings. This silence is so complete that prey animals often have no warning until it is too late. Yet there is nothing cruel in this efficiency. It is simply nature's perfect engineering, honed over millions of years to create a predator so well suited to its environment that its presence helps maintain the delicate balance that keeps the entire forest ecosystem healthy. Ground-dwelling creatures move through this darkness with equal sophistication. The tiny shrew, no bigger than a human thumb, navigates by echolocation, producing high-pitched clicks that bounce off objects and return to its sensitive ears. This natural sonar system allows it to hunt effectively even in complete darkness, pursuing insects and small invertebrates through the leaf litter with remarkable precision. Raccoons demonstrate perhaps the most human-like adaptation to night life. Their intelligence becomes even more apparent in darkness, where they must rely on problem-solving skills and manual dexterity rather than vision. They have been observed using tools, manipulating complex objects, and even teaching their young sophisticated foraging techniques. Watching a raccoon family work together to access food sources in the dark reveals a level of cooperation and communication that challenges our assumptions about animal intelligence. The forest floor itself becomes a highway system in the darkness. Creatures follow scent trails laid down by others, creating invisible pathways that crisscross the woodland like a complex transportation network. These trails tell stories to those who can read them. A deer path worn smooth by generations of hooves, the faint musk marking where a fox has claimed territory, the subtle chemical signals that guide ants back to their colonies, even in complete darkness. Plant life in the night forest reveals its own hidden wonders. Many flowers that appear unremarkable during the day transform at night into beacons for nocturnal pollinators. Evening primrose blooms open only as darkness falls, their pale yellow petals and sweet fragrance designed specifically to attract night-flying moths. 4 o'clock flowers live up to their name, opening precisely as afternoon shadows begin to lengthen. Night-blooming cereus saves its spectacular flowering for just one night each year, producing blooms of incredible beauty that last only until dawn. These nocturnal blooms have developed intricate relationships with their pollinators. Night-flying moths navigate by moonlight and starlight, and flowers have evolved to be visible and attractive under these conditions. Pale colors that would seem washed out in bright sunlight become luminous beacons in darkness. Fragrances that might be overwhelmed by competing scents during the day can travel great distances through the still night air. The very chemistry of the forest changes after dark. Plants that photosynthesize during the day switch to different processes at night. They release different compounds into the air, creating the distinctive scent profile of the nighttime woodland. This fragrance is complex and layered, combining the earthy smell of decomposing leaves, the green freshness of living plants, the subtle sweetness of night-blooming flowers, and the clean scent of dew beginning to form on every surface. Moisture plays a crucial role in the night forest ecosystem. As temperatures drop, relative humidity rises, and dew begins to condense on leaves, bark, and spider webs. This moisture becomes a vital resource for many creatures. Tiny insects drink from dewdrops formed on leaves. Small mammals lick moisture from tree bark. Even plants benefit, absorbing water directly through their leaves in a process that supplements their root systems. The formation of dew creates one of the night forest's most magical phenomena. Spider webs, invisible during the day, become outlined in tiny water droplets that catch and reflect whatever light is available. These jeweled masterpieces appear throughout the forest, like nature's own fairy lights, each one a unique geometric pattern that reveals the incredible engineering skills of its creator. Spiders themselves are among the most successful nocturnal hunters. Many species are most active at night, when their prey is also moving about. They hunt not by sight, but through vibrations transmitted through their webs, or directly through the ground. A spider can identify the size, location, and even species of potential prey simply by interpreting the subtle vibrations that reach its sensitive legs. The soundscape of the deep forest changes throughout the night in predictable patterns. Early evening brings the calls of owls establishing territory and seeking mates. As the night progresses, these calls may become less frequent as successful hunters focus on feeding. The small rustlings and movements of mice and other tiny mammals peak in the middle hours of darkness when predator activity is at its lowest toward dawn. A different set of sounds emerges as some nocturnal creatures return to their daytime shelters and the earliest day-active species begin to stir. This changing symphony reflects the complex timing mechanisms that govern forest life. Every species has evolved to be active during the hours that offer the best combination of food availability, safety from predators, and optimal environmental conditions. The result is a carefully orchestrated schedule that ensures the forest's resources are used efficiently and that different species can coexist without excessive competition. Weather patterns also influence the night forest in ways that become apparent only through careful observation. On clear, calm nights, sounds carry furthest and creatures are most active. Light wind creates gentle movement in the canopy that provides cover for the sounds of moving animals. Heavy overcast conditions muffle sounds and reduce visibility even further, causing most creatures to move more cautiously. The approach of weather changes often triggers increased activity as animals respond to dropping barometric pressure and other atmospheric cues that humans cannot detect. Temperature variations throughout the night create microclimates within the forest. Low-lying areas where cold air settles become refuges for creatures seeking cooler conditions. Elevated areas that retain more warmth attract those preferring slightly higher temperatures. South-facing slopes cool more slowly than north-facing ones. These subtle differences create a complex, three-dimensional habitat where different species can find exactly the conditions they prefer, sometimes within just a few meters of each other. The night forest rewards patient observation in ways that daylight exploration never can. Here, in this realm of shadow and whisper, every sense becomes heightened, every sound carries meaning, and every movement tells a story. It is a world that operates by different rules, where survival depends on adaptation, cooperation, and the ancient wisdom encoded in countless generations of creatures who learn to thrive when darkness falls and the hidden life of the forest begins. Throughout the deeper hours of night, the forest reveals its most closely guarded secrets through phenomena that exist nowhere else. In these profound depths of darkness, where silence becomes almost physical in its presence, we encounter the forest's most extraordinary adaptations to life without light. One of the most remarkable inhabitants of this nocturnal realm is the flying squirrel, a creature so perfectly designed for darkness that many people who live near forests never suspect its existence. Unlike their daytime cousins, flying squirrels possess enormous eyes that gather even the faintest traces of available light. Their gliding membrane, stretched between front and back legs, allows them to navigate between trees with grace that seems almost supernatural in the darkness. When they launch themselves from high branches, they become living shadows, their soft fur muffling any sound as they soar through the night air with precision that would challenge the most skilled pilot. These aerial acrobats communicate through ultrasonic chirps that exist beyond the range of human hearing. Their conversations fill the night air with sounds we cannot perceive, creating an entire layer of forest communication that remains invisible to us. When researchers first recorded these vocalizations and played them back at lower frequencies, they discovered a complex social network of calls that coordinate mating, territory disputes, and family group activities throughout the canopy. The night forest also reveals the secret lives of creatures that seem unremarkable during daylight hours. Common tree frogs transform after dark into accomplished singers, their calls creating the background chorus that many associate with peaceful summer evenings. But these are not random songs. Each species has developed specific calling patterns, pitches, and rhythms that allow them to find mates of their own kind, even when dozens of different species are calling simultaneously from the same area. The tiny spring peeper, no larger than a human thumbnail, can produce calls that carry for remarkable distances through the still night air. Groups of males create synchronized choruses that pulse together, the combined volume of their voices carrying their message far beyond what any individual could achieve alone. When one group falls silent, others scattered throughout the forest continue the rhythm, creating waves of sound that roll across entire watersheds like acoustic tides. Salamanders, those mysterious amphibians that spend their days hidden under logs and stones, emerge at night to reveal behaviors that few humans ever witness. Some species engage in elaborate courtship dances, moving in slow, graceful patterns that involve intricate positioning and chemical communication through specialized glands. These ancient creatures, unchanged for millions of years, carry out rituals that predate the evolution of most other forest inhabitants. The forest's insect life reaches its peak activity during the dark hours, creating a hidden world of incredible complexity and beauty. Night-flying moths, often dismissed as drab compared to their butterfly relatives, reveal themselves to be creatures of extraordinary diversity and adaptation. Some species navigate by celestial cues, using the moon and stars as compass points for journeys that can span hundreds of miles. Others have evolved ears specifically tuned to detect the echolocation calls of hunting bats, allowing them to take evasive action when danger approaches. Fireflies create perhaps the most magical displays in the entire nocturnal forest. Each species has developed its own unique flashing pattern, turning the darkness into a living constellation of green, yellow, and occasionally blue lights. These are not random sparkles, but carefully timed signals that convey specific information about species identity, mating readiness, and individual fitness. The synchronous fireflies of certain forest regions create displays where thousands of insects flash in perfect unison, turning entire sections of woodland into pulsing beacons visible from great distances. The chemistry behind these living lights represents one of nature's most efficient forms of energy conversion. Unlike human-made lights that lose most of their energy as heat, firefly bioluminescence converts nearly 100% of its chemical energy directly into light. This cold light produces no heat signature that might alert predators and requires no external energy source beyond what the insect can produce through its own metabolism. Beetles active during night hours have developed equally impressive adaptations. Some species produce their own light sources, creating tiny headlamps that allow them to hunt in complete darkness. Others have evolved specialized antennae that can detect chemical traces left by prey or potential mates from remarkable distances. The forest floor becomes a complex landscape of chemical trails and signals that guide these creatures through their nocturnal activities with precision that rivals any human navigation system. The predator-prey relationships in the night forest operate on entirely different principles than those of daylight hours. Bats emerge from their daytime roosts to begin hunting expeditions that showcase some of the most sophisticated biological technology on Earth. Their echolocation system produces sounds at frequencies and intensities that allow them to create detailed three-dimensional maps of their environment in real time. They can distinguish between different types of insects, track multiple targets simultaneously, and navigate through dense vegetation at speeds that would be impossible using vision alone. Different bat species have evolved specialized hunting strategies perfectly suited to their preferred prey. Some hunt in open areas above the forest canopy, using long-range echolocation to detect insects at considerable distances. Others navigate through dense undergrowth, using brief, intense sonar pulses to capture prey from leaves and bark surfaces. Still others specialize in hunting near water sources. Their echolocation calls designed to penetrate the acoustic complexity created by flowing streams and wind-blown vegetation. The relationship between bats and their environment extends beyond simple predation. Many fruit-eating bats serve as crucial seed dispersers for forest plants, carrying seeds far from parent trees and depositing them in new locations through their droppings. Nectar-feeding bats pollinate night-blooming plants. Their long tongues and specialized feeding behaviors perfectly match to flowers that open only in darkness. Some bat species have co-evolved so closely with specific plants that neither can survive without the other, creating partnerships that have endured for millions of years. Ground-dwelling predators in the night forest employ entirely different hunting strategies. Foxes rely primarily on hearing to locate prey. Their oversized ears capable of detecting the movement of small mammals through leaf litter from surprising distances. Their hunting technique involves a characteristic pouncing behavior, where they leap high into the air and come down precisely on target, using their acute hearing to guide them to prey. They cannot see weasels, and their relatives become remarkably active after dark. Their slender bodies perfectly designed for pursuing prey through burrows and dense vegetation. Their hunting style is relentless and energetic, requiring them to consume enormous quantities of food relative to their body size. A single weasel may hunt continuously throughout the night, covering considerable territory and consuming multiple prey items to fuel its high-energy lifestyle. The nocturnal forest also reveals the secret lives of larger mammals that remain largely hidden during daylight hours. Black bears, despite their reputation as daytime creatures, often do much of their foraging at night, especially during seasons when human activity is high in their territory. Their night vision is excellent, and their sense of smell is so acute that they can detect food sources from miles away. Watching a bear move through the darkness reveals a surprising grace and quietness that contradicts their bulky appearance. Bobcats and other wild felines become most active during the hours between dusk and dawn, their hunting instincts perfectly tuned to darkness. Their padded paws allow them to move in complete silence, while their eyes gather available light with remarkable efficiency. These solitary hunters can remain motionless for extended periods, waiting for the perfect moment to strike at prey that may be completely unaware of their presence. The forest's water sources take on special significance during night hours. Streams and ponds become gathering places where many species come to drink, creating temporary communities that exist only in darkness. These watering holes often serve as informal neutral zones where potential predators and prey share space temporarily, their immediate need for water overriding other behavioral patterns. The sound of flowing water carries differently at night, becoming more prominent in the absence of competing daytime sounds. These acoustic beacons guide creatures to vital resources from considerable distances. The gentle babble of a stream can be heard much farther through the still night air than during the day, when wind, bird songs, and other sounds create acoustic interference. Around these water sources, the night forest creates some of its most magical scenes. Deer approach cautiously, their hooves making soft sounds on the damp earth raccoons gather in family groups, their hands busy washing food and exploring the water's edge. Bats sweep low over the surface, catching insects and occasionally drinking on the wing. These moments of convergence represent the night forest at its most peaceful and harmonious, where different species share resources in temporary cooperation. The very structure of the forest changes subtly at night as plants respond to darkness in ways that affect the entire ecosystem. Some flowers close their petals to protect pollen from night moisture, while others open to attract nocturnal pollinators. Leaves may change position to minimize heat loss or maximize dew collection. Trees may alter the chemistry of their sap, producing different compounds that serve as defenses against nocturnal insects or as attractants for beneficial species. These plant responses create cascading effects throughout the forest community. Changes in flower availability affect which pollinators are active. Variations in leaf chemistry influence which insects choose to feed on specific plants. Even the physical positioning of leaves affects how sound travels through the forest, creating subtle changes in the acoustic environment that influence animal behavior and communication patterns. As the night progresses toward its deepest hours, the forest enters a period of profound stillness that seems to exist outside normal time. This is when the most secretive creatures emerge, when the rarest behaviors occur, and when the forest reveals mysteries that have been hidden for centuries in the embrace of perfect darkness. In this profound darkness, we encounter one of the forest's most enigmatic inhabitants, the barn owl. These ghostly hunters possess perhaps the most sophisticated hearing system in the animal kingdom. Their facial disc acts as a natural satellite dish, gathering sound waves and focusing them toward ears that are positioned asymmetrically on their heads. This unique arrangement allows them to pinpoint the exact location of prey in three-dimensional space using sound alone. When a barn owl tilts its head in that characteristic listening pose, it is performing calculations that would challenge the most advanced computers, triangulating the position of a mouse moving through grass from tiny differences in the timing and volume of sounds reaching each ear. The precision of this system becomes apparent when researchers study barn owl hunting behavior in complete darkness. These birds can successfully capture prey in conditions where even the most sensitive cameras detect no light whatsoever. They navigate through dense vegetation, avoid obstacles, and strike targets with accuracy that approaches 100%, all while flying in absolute silence. Their success rate in total darkness often exceeds their performance in partial light conditions, suggesting that vision might actually interfere with their acoustic hunting abilities. Other forest dwellers have developed equally remarkable sensory adaptations for life in darkness. Shrews, among the smallest mammals in the forest, possess metabolisms so rapid that they must hunt almost continuously to survive. Their tiny hearts beat over 1,000 times per minute, and they can literally starve to death if they go without food for more than a few hours. This extreme lifestyle has driven them to develop hunting techniques that work efficiently in any light condition. These miniature predators hunt primarily through touch and echolocation, producing ultrasonic clicks that help them navigate through leaf litter and fallen logs. Their whiskers are extraordinarily sensitive, capable of detecting vibrations and air movements that indicate the presence of insects or other small prey. Some shrew species have been observed using their echolocation calls, not just for navigation, but for communication, creating complex social interactions in environments where visual signals would be useless. The forest's decomposer community reaches peak activity during night hours, performing the essential work that keeps the entire ecosystem functioning. beetles, millipedes, and countless other invertebrates emerge from hiding places to consume fallen leaves, dead wood, and organic matter that accumulates on the forest floor. This army of recyclers works tirelessly through the dark hours, breaking down complex organic compounds into simpler nutrients that plants can absorb. Fungal networks also become more active at night, their thread-like mycelia extending through soil and dead organic matter in search of nutrients to decompose. These fungi form vast underground networks that connect individual trees and plants, creating what scientists now recognize as a kind of forest internet through which plants can share resources and communicate chemical messages. The night hours provide optimal conditions for fungal growth, with higher humidity and stable temperatures that allow these networks to expand and strengthen. The soil itself becomes a bustling metropolis of activity after dark. Earthworms emerge from their daytime burrows to feed on organic matter at the surface, their movements aerating the soil and mixing nutrients throughout different layers. These humble creatures process enormous quantities of earth through their digestive systems, creating the rich, fertile soil that supports all plant life in the forest. A single earthworm can process its own body weight in organic matter every day, and healthy forest soil may contain hundreds of earthworms per square meter. Microscopic life forms also reach peak activity during night hours. Bacteria that break down organic compounds work more efficiently in the cooler, more humid conditions that prevail after dark. Tiny protozoa hunt bacteria and other microorganisms through films of moisture on leaf surfaces and in soil pores. These invisible ecosystems process nutrients and energy on a scale that dwarfs all visible forest activity, yet their work remains completely hidden from casual observation. The night forest's plant community reveals adaptations that exist nowhere else in nature. Some trees actually change the chemistry of their bark after dark, producing compounds that deter nocturnal insects while attracting beneficial microorganisms. Certain species alter their sap flow patterns, moving nutrients and water through their systems according to rhythms that match nocturnal temperature and humidity cycles. Night-blooming orchids create some of the most spectacular displays in the entire forest, though few humans ever witness them. These flowers often bloom for just one night, producing elaborate petals and intense fragrances designed to attract specific moth species. The relationship between these orchids and their pollinators represents evolutionary partnership refined over millions of years, with flower and moth so perfectly matched that neither can survive without the other. Some plants have evolved the ability to track the movement of nocturnal pollinators through chemical communication. When a moth visits one flower, that plant can release airborne compounds that signal other flowers of the same species, preparing them for potential visits. This chemical coordination allows plants to optimize their nectar production and pollen presentation based on real-time pollinator activity, maximizing their reproductive success during the brief window when their flowers are open. The forest canopy takes on entirely different characteristics at night, becoming a three-dimensional highway system for creatures that rarely descend to ground level. Flying squirrels create established routes between favorite trees, their gliding paths worn smooth by generations of use. These aerial highways connect feeding areas, nesting sites, and social gathering spots across vast expanses of forest, without requiring the squirrels to expose themselves to ground-dwelling predators. Tree-dwelling creatures have developed sophisticated communication systems that operate across multiple levels of the forest canopy. Different species occupy specific height zones, from the highest emergent layer down to the understory, and each zone has its own acoustic properties. Sounds produced in the canopy carry differently than those originating near the ground, and animals have adapted their vocalizations to take advantage of these acoustic zones for maximum communication efficiency. The interplay between wind and forest structure creates acoustic phenomena that exist only during certain weather conditions. On perfectly still nights, sounds can travel for incredible distances through the forest, with the calls of owls or the sounds of large mammals audible from miles away. Light breezes create gentle background sounds that mask the movements of prey animals, allowing predators to hunt more effectively while simultaneously providing cover for creatures trying to avoid detection. Temperature gradients throughout the forest create complex air movement patterns that influence both sound transmission and scent dispersal. Warm air rising from sun-heated clearings creates updrafts that carry scents and sounds to different levels of the canopy. Cool air flowing down from higher elevations creates downdrafts that bring information from the upper reaches of the forest down to ground level. These invisible air currents create a dynamic, ever-changing environment that forest creatures navigate with instinctive understanding. The night forest reveals the profound interconnectedness of all life through relationships that become visible only in darkness. Predators and prey engage in evolutionary arms races that have produced remarkable adaptations on both sides. Prey animals develop better hearing, faster reflexes, and more effective camouflage. Predators evolve more sensitive detection systems, quieter movement, and more efficient hunting techniques. The result is a community where every species pushes every other species toward greater perfection in their respective roles. These relationships extend beyond simple predation to include complex partnerships that benefit multiple species. Certain birds follow hunting mammals, feeding on insects, and small creatures disturbed by their larger companions' movements. Some plants time their seed dispersal to coincide with the movement patterns of nocturnal animals, ensuring their seeds reach suitable growing sites. These mutually beneficial relationships create stability in the forest ecosystem that allows it to persist through environmental changes and challenges. The night forest also serves as a corridor for long-distance migration, with many species using darkness as cover for movements that might expose them to predation. During daylight hours, salamanders migrate to breeding ponds under cover of darkness, sometimes traveling considerable distances across landscapes that would be dangerous to cross in daylight. Birds that migrate primarily at night use the forest as a resting and feeding area, stopping to refuel during their journeys between distant seasonal habitats. These migration patterns bring temporary visitors to the forest who contribute to its ecological diversity in ways that vary with the seasons. Spring migrants may bring nutrients from distant ecosystems, depositing them in the forest through their droppings. Fall migrants may disperse seeds from plants that grow hundreds of miles away, introducing genetic diversity that strengthens forest plant populations. The seasonal changes in the night forest create entirely different experiences throughout the year, each with its own characteristic sounds, scents, and activities. Spring nights bring the calls of migrating birds, the first tentative songs of newly emerged insects, and the sounds of animals establishing territories and seeking mates. Summer darkness pulses with the full chorus of nocturnal life, every available niche filled with creatures taking advantage of abundant food and optimal conditions. Autumn nights carry the rustle of falling leaves, the calls of migrating waterfowl passing overhead, and the busy activities of animals preparing for winter. The scents of decomposing vegetation create rich, earthy aromas that speak of cycles ending and beginning again. Winter transforms the night forest into a realm of crystalline silence, where the soft sounds of snow falling and settling become the dominant acoustic elements, punctuated by the calls of hardy, permanent residents who have adapted to survive the harshest conditions. Throughout all these seasonal changes, the night forest maintains its essential character as a place where life operates according to different rules, where adaptation and cooperation create beauty that exists primarily in darkness, and where the ancient rhythms of the natural world continue unchanged, despite the dramatic transformations occurring in the illuminated human realm that surrounds and increasingly encroaches upon these precious sanctuaries of shadow and silence. As we venture deeper into these nocturnal mysteries, we discover that the night forest holds phenomena that challenge our understanding of what is possible in the natural world. Here, in the deepest hours before dawn, when darkness reaches its most complete embrace, the forest reveals its most extraordinary secrets through creatures and events that seem to exist at the very edge of reality. Among the most remarkable of these phenomena are the ghost moths that appear only on the warmest summer nights. These pale, translucent insects seem to materialize from the darkness itself, their wings catching whatever faint light filters through the canopy and reflecting it back like tiny mirrors. Unlike their day-flying relatives, ghost moths have evolved wing patterns that create optical illusions in darkness, making them appear larger and more threatening to potential predators while remaining nearly invisible to their own prey. The hunting behavior of these ethereal creatures represents adaptation refined to an almost supernatural degree. They navigate through complete darkness using specialized organs that detect the electrical fields generated by other insects. Every living creature produces a minute electrical signature through its metabolic processes, and ghost moths have learned to read these biological signals like a map written in invisible ink. When they strike, it is with precision that seems to defy the limitations of operating without sight. The forest floor during these deep night hours becomes a stage for dramas that few humans ever witness. Salamanders emerge for elaborate courtship rituals that unfold in slow motion across moss-covered logs and damp earth. These ancient ceremonies involve complex chemical communications, with males depositing specialized packets of genetic material that females must locate and retrieve through careful choreographed movements. The entire process can take hours to complete, a patient dance of reproduction that has remained unchanged for millions of years. These amphibian courtship rituals often attract observers from throughout the forest community. Small mammals gather at safe distances to watch, perhaps drawn by curiosity or by some deeper recognition of the profound importance of these reproductive ceremonies. Even insects seem to modify their behavior during these events, with the usual background chorus of cricket songs taking on different rhythms and patterns, as if the entire forest adjusts its activities to accommodate these crucial moments of species continuation. The mycorrhizal networks that connect tree roots reach their peak activity during the deepest night hours, when cooler temperatures and higher humidity create optimal conditions for fungal growth and communication. These underground networks pulse with chemical messages that coordinate forest-wide responses to environmental changes. When one tree is attacked by insects, warning signals race through the fungal network faster than the insects themselves can spread, allowing distant trees to begin producing defensive compounds before the threat reaches them. Recent research has revealed that these fungal networks also serve as information highways for sharing resources between different tree species. A dying oak might transfer its remaining nutrients to nearby maples through the fungal connections, while healthy evergreens might send excess sugars to deciduous trees during the leafless winter months. This cooperation between species creates a forest community that functions more like a single superorganism than a collection of competing individuals. The night forest's water cycle operates according to principles that become apparent only in darkness. Dew formation begins hours before it becomes visible, as moisture in the air starts condensing on surfaces that have cooled below the dew point temperature. This process creates microclimates throughout the forest, with some areas becoming significantly more humid than others based on their exposure to air currents and thermal radiation patterns. Plants have evolved sophisticated mechanisms for harvesting this nocturnal moisture. Some species position their leaves to funnel dew toward their root systems, effectively irrigating themselves with water collected from the air. Others have developed specialized leaf surfaces that encourage dew formation, creating their own localized precipitation systems that supplement rainfall during dry periods. These adaptations allow certain plants to survive in locations where soil moisture alone would be insufficient to sustain them. The formation and distribution of dew creates temporary habitats that exist only during specific nighttime hours. Tiny aquatic ecosystems develop in the water collected by large leaves or in hollow portions of tree bark. These ephemeral pools support microscopic communities that complete entire life cycles between sunset and sunrise, their existence entirely dependent on the forest's ability to extract moisture from darkness. Nocturnal predators have learned to exploit these dew formation patterns in their hunting strategies. Spiders position their webs along routes where dew-laden insects are likely to travel, while ground-dwelling hunters focus their efforts in areas where prey animals come to drink from dew-covered vegetation. The distribution of moisture throughout the forest creates a complex map of opportunity that experienced nocturnal hunters can read and interpret with remarkable accuracy. The acoustic environment of the deep night forest reveals layers of communication that extend far beyond what human ears can detect. Many forest creatures communicate using infrasonic frequencies below the range of human hearing. Their low-frequency calls traveling for miles through the forest without interference from higher-pitched sounds. Elephants in other ecosystems use similar communication methods, and researchers are discovering that forest mammals employ comparable techniques for long-distance coordination of activities like migration and mating. These subsonic conversations create a hidden dimension of forest social life that operates continuously beneath the threshold of human awareness. Family groups maintain contact across vast distances. Territorial boundaries are negotiated and maintained, and complex social hierarchies are established and reinforced through acoustic signals that travel through the forest like invisible threads, connecting every member of the community. The night forest also serves as a natural laboratory, where evolution continues its endless work of refinement and adaptation. Genetic mutations that would be disadvantageous in daylight conditions sometimes prove beneficial in darkness, allowing new variations to survive and reproduce. Over time, these nocturnal advantages can lead to the development of entirely new species perfectly adapted to life without light. Cave systems connected to the forest provide extreme examples of this evolutionary process. Creatures that venture into these underground realms sometimes become trapped by geological changes, forced to adapt to permanent darkness over thousands of generations. The result is the development of species with enhanced non-visual senses, modified body structures, and behavioral adaptations that would seem impossible to creatures dependent on sight. Some of these cave-adapted species maintain connections to the forest ecosystem through underground streams and seasonal migration patterns. They serve as links between the surface forest and the hidden underground ecosystems that extend far beneath the visible landscape. These connections create three-dimensional ecological relationships that add vertical complexity to the already intricate web of forest interdependence. The night forest's role as a refuge extends beyond providing shelter for nocturnal species. Many day-active creatures use the cover of darkness for activities that would be too dangerous during daylight hours. Young animals make their first explorations beyond natal territories under cover of darkness. Injured or sick individuals emerge to feed when reduced visibility gives them protection from predators that might easily target weakened prey during daylight. Seasonal migrations often occur primarily at night, with entire populations of birds, mammals, and even insects timing their movements to take advantage of darkness. These mass movements create temporary surges in forest activity that can dramatically alter the acoustic and chemical environment for brief periods. The arrival of thousands of migrating birds can transform a quiet forest night into a symphony of calls and wing beats that builds to crescendos before fading as the travelers continue their journeys. The timing of these migration events is often coordinated with lunar cycles, weather patterns, and seasonal changes in ways that maximize survival success. Animals seem to possess internal calendars that account for multiple environmental variables, allowing them to choose optimal travel conditions, even when those conditions occur infrequently and unpredictably. Plant reproduction in the night forest follows equally complex timing mechanisms. Many species coordinate their flowering and pollination activities with the life cycles of their nocturnal pollinators, creating brief windows of intense activity followed by long periods of dormancy. Some plants flower only during specific moon phases, when the combination of available light and pollinator activity creates optimal conditions for reproductive success. These reproductive strategies often involve remarkable precision in timing and resource allocation. A night-blooming cactus might accumulate energy for years before producing a single flower that opens for just one night. During that brief window, the plant must attract the right pollinator species, complete fertilization, and begin seed development before dawn arrives and the flower closes permanently. The stakes could not be higher, and the margin for error is virtually non-existent. The chemical ecology of the night forest operates on principles that become apparent only through careful observation over extended periods. Scent trails laid down by various animals create invisible highways that guide movement patterns throughout the forest. These chemical messages can persist for days or weeks, providing information about food sources, territorial boundaries, reproductive status, and danger warnings to creatures capable of interpreting them. Different species use different chemical communication systems, creating multiple layers of information that exist simultaneously in the same physical space. A single tree trunk might carry scent markings from deer, bears, smaller mammals, and various bird species, each leaving messages intended for members of their own species while remaining largely invisible to others. The result is a complex chemical landscape that provides detailed information to those equipped to read it, while remaining completely hidden from human perception. The therapeutic qualities of the night forest environment have been recognized by human cultures throughout history, though the scientific understanding of these effects is only beginning to emerge. The combination of negative ions generated by moving water and vegetation, the absence of artificial electromagnetic fields, and the complex mixture of airborne compounds produced by forest plants creates an atmosphere that measurably affects human physiology and psychology. Studies have shown that exposure to night forest environments can reduce stress hormones, lower blood pressure, and improve immune system function in ways that persist long after the forest experience ends. The specific combination of acoustic, chemical, and electromagnetic conditions found only in undisturbed nocturnal forest environments appears to trigger beneficial responses in human nervous and endocrine systems that cannot be replicated in other settings. The preservation of these nighttime forest ecosystems becomes increasingly important as artificial lighting spreads across more of the landscape. Light pollution from distant cities can penetrate surprisingly far into forest areas, disrupting the natural cycles that nocturnal species depend upon for survival. Even small amounts of artificial light can interfere with navigation systems, mating behaviors, and feeding patterns that have evolved over millions of years in darkness. The cascading effects of light pollution extend throughout forest food webs in ways that are only beginning to be understood. Insects attracted to artificial lights become unavailable to their natural predators, disrupting feeding relationships that support larger animals. Plants that depend on nocturnal pollinators may experience reduced reproductive success when their pollinators are distracted by artificial illumination. The entire delicate balance of nocturnal ecosystem relationships can be altered by light sources located miles away from the forest itself. Climate change adds another layer of complexity to the challenges facing night forest ecosystems. Changing temperature and precipitation patterns affect the timing of seasonal events that nocturnal species depend upon for reproduction, and survival species that have evolved precise timing mechanisms for activities like flowering, migration, and hibernation may find themselves out of synchronization with the environmental conditions they require. The resilience of night forest ecosystems depends largely on their connectivity to larger landscape networks that provide corridors for genetic exchange and population movement. Isolated forest patches, even if they maintain darkness, may lack the genetic diversity necessary to adapt to changing conditions. The preservation of dark corridors connecting different forest areas becomes crucial for maintaining the long-term viability of nocturnal species populations. As we continue our journey through these deepest hours of forest night, we begin to understand that what we are witnessing represents something far more significant than simply the absence of daylight. This is a parallel universe of life and activity that operates according to its own rules, maintains its own relationships, and creates its own forms of beauty and meaning. The night forest is not merely the day forest with the lights turned off, but rather a completely different world that happens to occupy the same physical space during the hours when most humans are asleep and unaware of the profound dramas unfolding in the darkness around them. The relationship between predator and prey in the night forest creates some of nature's most sophisticated evolutionary partnerships. Each species drives the other toward greater perfection through millions of years of adaptation and counter-adaptation. When a mouse develops better hearing to detect approaching owls, owls respond by evolving even quieter flight. When insects develop chemical defenses against nocturnal hunters, their predators evolve more sensitive detection systems to locate alternative prey. This endless dance of survival has produced creatures so perfectly adapted to their roles that they seem almost designed by an intelligence beyond nature itself. Among the most remarkable examples of this evolutionary refinement are the hunting strategies employed by different owl species throughout the night hours. Great horned owls, with their powerful talons and fearless attitude, hunt larger prey like rabbits and even skunks, their aggressive approach perfectly suited to overpowering substantial targets. Screech owls, smaller and more delicate, specialize in catching insects and tiny mammals, their compact size allowing them to navigate through dense vegetation that would impede larger hunters. Barn owls represent perhaps the pinnacle of acoustic hunting evolution. Their heart-shaped facial discs act as natural parabolic reflectors, gathering sound waves from a wide area and focusing them toward ears positioned asymmetrically on their skulls. This asymmetrical placement allows them to determine not just the direction of a sound, but also its elevation, creating a three-dimensional audio map of their hunting territory. When a barn owl hovers motionless above a field, head tilted in concentration, it is performing acoustic calculations that rival the most sophisticated military targeting systems. The success of these nocturnal hunters depends not only on their own adaptations, but also on their intimate knowledge of prey behavior patterns. Experienced owls learn the preferred routes that mice use to travel between feeding areas, the timing of peak activity periods for different prey species, and even the acoustic signatures that distinguish between potential targets and non-prey species. This learned behavior, passed from parent to offspring through extended training periods, adds layers of sophistication to hunting success that go far beyond simple instinctual responses. Ground-dwelling nocturnal predators employ entirely different but equally refined strategies. Foxes rely primarily on their extraordinary hearing to locate prey beneath snow, grass, or leaf litter. Their characteristic hunting pounce involves launching high into the air and coming down with pinpoint accuracy on targets they cannot see. This technique, called mousing, requires precise calculation of trajectory, timing, and force based solely on acoustic information. Successful foxes develop such accuracy that they can catch prey moving through tunnels several inches below the surface. Weasels and their relatives take a more direct approach, using their serpentine bodies to pursue prey through the same tunnels and burrows where their targets seek refuge. These relentless hunters possess metabolism so rapid that they must consume nearly half their body weight daily, driving them to hunt almost continuously throughout the night hours. Their hunting style is characterized by incredible persistence and energy, with individual weasels sometimes pursuing single prey animals for hours across considerable distances. The forest's smaller predators reveal equally impressive adaptations for nocturnal hunting. Shrews, among the tiniest mammals in the forest, possess hearts that beat over 1,000 times per minute and metabolism so rapid that they can starve to death within hours if unable to find food. These diminutive hunters use a combination of echolocation and electroreception to locate invertebrate prey, their whiskers detecting the minute electrical fields generated by the nervous systems of insects and worms. Spiders represent perhaps the most diverse group of nocturnal predators in the forest ecosystem. Web-building species create traps of incredible sophistication, with different designs optimized for specific prey types and environmental conditions. Orb weavers construct the classic circular webs that most people recognize, but these represent only one approach among dozens of web designs employed by different species. Some spiders build funnel webs that channel prey toward hiding spots, where the spider waits in ambush. Others create sheet webs stretched between vegetation, with trip lines that alert the spider to struggling prey. Hunting spiders that do not build webs employ strategies that rival those of much larger predators. Wolf spiders hunt actively across the forest floor, their excellent night vision and speed allowing them to run down prey in direct pursuit. Jumping spiders, despite their small size, are capable of leaping many times their body length to capture prey, their attacks coordinated with precision that would impress human athletes. Some species have evolved specialized techniques for hunting specific prey types, such as the spiders that specialize in catching other spiders by mimicking the vibrations of trapped insects to lure web builders within striking range. The success of nocturnal predators depends heavily on their ability to remain undetected by both prey and competing predators. This has led to the evolution of remarkably sophisticated camouflage and stealth techniques. Many species possess coloration that renders them nearly invisible against typical forest backgrounds, while others have evolved behavioral adaptations that minimize their detectability. Some predators synchronize their movements with environmental sounds like wind or flowing water to mask any noise they might produce while hunting. The acoustic stealth employed by nocturnal hunters reaches extraordinary levels of refinement. Owl feathers possess specialized structures that eliminate the turbulence normally created by air flowing over wing surfaces, allowing these birds to fly in complete silence. The leading edges of their primary flight feathers have comb-like projections that break up airflow, while the trailing edges feature soft fringes that eliminate the vortices that would otherwise create sound. Even their body feathers are designed to muffle any sounds created by movement, creating an acoustic cloak that renders them virtually undetectable to prey animals with sensitive hearing. Mammalian predators employ different but equally effective stealth techniques. Cats of all sizes, from tiny forest cats to larger species, possess retractable claws that allow them to move across various surfaces without creating sound. Their padded paws distribute weight evenly, reducing pressure on sound-producing surfaces like dry leaves or twigs. Many species have learned to move with a characteristic stalking gait that minimizes ground contact time and reduces the likelihood of stepping on noise-producing debris. The timing of predator activity throughout the night follows complex patterns that maximize hunting success while minimizing energy expenditure. Most nocturnal hunters concentrate their efforts during periods when their preferred prey species are most active and vulnerable. This creates predictable windows of intense predation pressure, followed by quieter periods when prey animals retreat to secure hiding places. These activity patterns are influenced by numerous environmental factors, including moon phase, weather conditions, temperature, and seasonal changes. Many predators hunt most successfully during the darkest portions of the night, when their superior sensory adaptations provide the greatest advantage over prey species. Others coordinate their hunting activities with the movement patterns of their targets, becoming active during the specific hours when prey animals must emerge to feed or travel between safe locations. The energy economics of nocturnal hunting require careful balance between the costs of searching for prey and the benefits obtained from successful captures. Predators must evaluate numerous factors when deciding whether to pursue potential prey, including the likely energy gain from a successful hunt, the energy cost of pursuit, the probability of success, and the risk of injury or exposure to larger predators. These calculations, performed instinctively based on evolutionary programming and learned experience, determine the moment-by-moment decisions that shape predator behavior throughout the night. Seasonal changes dramatically affect predator strategies and success rates. Winter hunting presents unique challenges as prey animals become scarce and weather conditions make hunting more difficult and energetically expensive. Many nocturnal predators must adjust their techniques, expand their hunting territories, or switch to alternative prey species during harsh weather periods. Some species cache excess food during abundant periods, creating reserves that sustain them through lean times. The social dynamics of nocturnal predation add another layer of complexity to forest nightlife. While many nocturnal hunters are solitary by nature, some species engage in cooperative hunting behaviors that increase success rates for all participants. Certain owl species hunt in mated pairs, with one individual flushing prey, while the other positions itself to intercept escaping targets. Some mammalian predators engage in similar cooperative strategies, particularly when hunting prey too large for individual hunters to handle effectively. The relationship between nocturnal predators and their environment extends beyond simple hunting considerations. These creatures serve as important population control agents for herbivorous species that might otherwise overgraze forest vegetation. Their presence influences the behavior patterns of prey species in ways that cascade throughout the entire ecosystem. Areas with active predator populations often show different vegetation patterns, animal movement routes, and even soil characteristics compared to areas where predators have been eliminated. The sounds of successful hunts punctuate the night forest soundscape, with brief moments of intensity that quickly fade back into the general acoustic background. The short, sharp cry of captured prey, the rustle of struggle in underbrush, and the quiet sounds of predators consuming their catch represent the constant presence of life and death drama occurring throughout the darkness. These sounds, while sometimes startling to human ears, are simply part of the natural rhythm that has sustained forest ecosystems for millions of years. The waste products and remains left by nocturnal predators contribute significantly to forest nutrient cycles. Bones, fur, feathers, and other indigestible materials are broken down by scavengers and decomposers, returning their constituent elements to the soil where they become available to plants. Even the pellets regurgitated by owls, containing the bones and fur of their prey, create small nutrient deposits that support localized plant growth. This recycling system ensures that energy captured by predators eventually becomes available to all levels of the forest food web. The presence of successful nocturnal predators often attracts scavenger species that feed on hunting remains and compete for similar prey resources. This creates complex ecological relationships where multiple species benefit from the hunting success of apex predators. Ravens and other corvids often follow hunting mammals, feeding on scraps and remains left behind. Smaller predators may hunt in the same areas as larger ones, capturing prey items that are too small to interest their larger competitors. The night forest's predator community represents one of nature's most sophisticated examples of resource partitioning and niche specialization. Each species has evolved to exploit specific prey types, hunting methods, and temporal activity patterns that minimize direct competition with other predators while maximizing their own hunting success. This specialization allows multiple predator species to coexist in the same forest area without depleting shared resources or engaging in destructive competition. The preservation of nocturnal predator populations requires maintaining not only suitable habitat, but also the complex web of prey species and environmental conditions that support successful hunting. Changes in forest structure, prey availability, or environmental conditions can have cascading effects that impact predator populations in ways that may not become apparent until years or decades after the initial disturbance. The night forest's predator community serves as an indicator of overall ecosystem health, with declining predator populations often signaling broader environmental problems that affect the entire forest community. As we observe these remarkable hunters at work in the darkness, we witness evolutionary processes that have refined survival strategies over millions of years. Each successful hunt represents the culmination of countless generations of adaptation, learning, and refinement. The nocturnal predators of the forest are not simply animals that happen to be active at night, but rather highly specialized creatures whose every adaptation has been shaped by the unique challenges and opportunities presented by life in darkness. Their presence transforms the night forest from a place of simple rest into an arena of constant activity, where the ancient dance between hunter and hunted continues with precision and grace that rivals the most carefully choreographed performance. The intricate web of nocturnal relationships extends far beyond the dramatic encounters between predator and prey, encompassing countless subtle interactions that shape the very fabric of forest life. In the deepest hours of night, when human consciousness retreats into dreams, the forest becomes a stage for biological partnerships that have evolved over millions of years into arrangements of breathtaking complexity and mutual benefit. Among the most remarkable of these relationships are the pollination partnerships between night-blooming plants and their specialized visitors. The evening primrose opens its pale yellow petals precisely as darkness falls, releasing a fragrance so subtle yet distinctive that it can guide sphinx moths from distances measured in miles. These large, hovering moths possess proboscises that unfurl to lengths perfectly matched to the depth of the primrose's nectar chambers, creating a partnership so precisely calibrated that neither species could survive without the other. The sphinx moth's approach to a night-blooming flower represents navigation and precision that challenges human understanding. Flying through complete darkness, these creatures locate individual flowers using a combination of scent detection, visual cues invisible to human eyes, and possibly even subtle electromagnetic signals generated by the plants themselves. Their hovering flight, which allows them to feed while remaining airborne, requires constant micro-adjustments to compensate for air currents and the movement of flower heads in evening breezes. The timing of these pollination events follows astronomical precision that connects forest life directly to celestial movements. Many night-blooming plants coordinate their flowering with lunar cycles, opening their blossoms during specific moon phases when their pollinators are most active. Some species flower only during the darkest nights of the lunar month, while others time their blooming to coincide with the brightest full moon periods when increased visibility aids in pollinator navigation. These temporal relationships create brief windows of intense activity that pulse through the forest like biological tides. On nights when multiple plant species reach peak flowering simultaneously, the forest fills with the movement of nocturnal pollinators, following invisible highways of scent and electromagnetic signals between widely scattered blooms. The air becomes thick with pheromones, flower fragrances, and the wing beats of countless insects engaged in the ancient work of reproduction and genetic exchange. The chemical communication systems operating in the night forest surpass human technological achievements in both sophistication and efficiency. Trees under attack by nocturnal insects release airborne compounds that drift through the still night air to warn neighboring trees of impending danger. These chemical messages can travel for considerable distances, allowing forests to coordinate defensive responses across entire watersheds. Receiving trees begin producing bitter compounds and toxic substances that make their foliage less palatable to approaching herbivores, creating waves of chemical defense that spread through the forest faster than the insects themselves can travel. Some plant species have evolved the ability to customize their chemical messages based on the specific type of threat they face. A tree attacked by caterpillars releases different warning compounds than one being damaged by beetles, allowing neighboring plants to prepare defenses specifically tailored to the approaching danger. This chemical vocabulary includes dozens of distinct molecular signals, each carrying precise information about threat type, intensity, and location within the forest canopy. The mycorrhizal networks that connect tree roots throughout the forest reach their peak activity during the coolest hours of night, when optimal conditions allow fungal threads to extend their reach and strengthen their connections. These underground networks function as biological internet systems, carrying not only nutrients and water, but also complex chemical information between widely separated plants. Through these fungal highways, an ancient oak can share resources with young saplings growing in its shade, while evergreen species can supply nutrients to deciduous trees during the leafless winter months. Recent research has revealed that these networks also serve as early warning systems that operate on forest-wide scales. When one tree detects the presence of disease organisms or insect attacks, warning signals race through the fungal connections at speeds that allow distant trees to begin producing defensive compounds before the threat reaches their location. This cooperative defense system transforms individual trees into components of a forest-wide immune system that responds to threats with coordinated precision. The soil community beneath the night forest operates as a complex metropolis of microscopic activity that processes nutrients and energy on scales that dwarf all visible forest activity. Bacteria that specialize in breaking down complex organic compounds work most efficiently during the cool, humid conditions that prevail after sunset. These microscopic recyclers can process their own body weight in organic matter multiple times each day, transforming fallen leaves, dead wood, and animal waste into simple nutrients that plants can absorb through their root systems. Earthworms emerge from their daytime burrows to feed on organic matter that has accumulated on the forest surface, their movements mixing soil layers and distributing nutrients throughout the root zone of forest plants. A single earthworm processes enormous quantities of earth through its digestive system, creating nutrient-rich castings that serve as slow-release fertilizers for plants throughout the growing season. Healthy forest soil may contain hundreds of earthworms per square meter, their combined activity restructuring and enriching the earth that supports all forest life. The acoustic environment of the night forest serves functions that extend far beyond simple communication between individuals of the same species. Many creatures use the forest's sound-reflecting properties to navigate through dense vegetation, producing calls that bounce off trees, rocks, and other obstacles to create acoustic maps of their surroundings. Bats represent the most sophisticated practitioners of this biological sonar, but many other species employ similar techniques on smaller scales. Some nocturnal mammals produce infrasonic calls that travel for miles through the forest without interference from higher frequency sounds. These low-frequency communications allow family groups to maintain contact across vast territories, coordinate hunting activities, and share information about food sources or potential dangers. The forest fills with these subsonic conversations that occur completely below the threshold of human hearing, creating a hidden dimension of social interaction that connects creatures separated by distances measured in miles. The thermal properties of the night forest create microclimates that exist nowhere else in nature. As the sun disappears and air temperatures drop, different areas of the forest cool at different rates based on their exposure to air currents, thermal mass of surrounding objects, and elevation above or below surrounding terrain. These temperature variations create complex air movement patterns that influence everything from sound transmission to scent dispersal throughout the forest ecosystem. Cold air flowing downhill from higher elevations creates streams of dense, moisture-laden atmosphere that follow predictable routes through valleys and lowlands. Nocturnal creatures learn to exploit these thermal currents for efficient travel, riding downdrafts to cover distances with minimal energy expenditure. Insects use these airstreams for long-distance dispersal, while larger animals position themselves along thermal corridors to intercept prey or locate mates more efficiently. The formation of dew during night hours creates temporary aquatic ecosystems that support life forms found nowhere else. Large leaves collect moisture from the air, forming pools that may persist for several hours before evaporating with the morning sun. These ephemeral habitats support microscopic communities that complete entire life cycles between sunset and sunrise, their existence entirely dependent on the forest's ability to harvest water from darkness. Some plants have evolved specialized structures specifically designed to collect and channel dew toward their root systems, effectively irrigating themselves with water extracted from night air. These adaptations allow certain species to thrive in locations where soil moisture alone would be insufficient to sustain them, expanding the range of habitats where forest plants can successfully establish and reproduce. The night forest serves as a crucial corridor for genetic exchange between distant plant and animal populations. Nocturnal pollinators carry pollen between flowers separated by considerable distances, maintaining genetic diversity that strengthens forest plant communities against environmental challenges. Similarly, nocturnal seed dispersers transport seeds far from parent plants, allowing forest species to colonize new habitats and recover from local disturbances. Wind patterns that occur primarily during night hours contribute significantly to this genetic mixing process. Many forest plants release their seeds during specific nighttime wind conditions that maximize dispersal distance and improve the likelihood that seeds will reach suitable germination sites. Some species coordinate their seed release with the activity patterns of nocturnal animals, timing their reproductive efforts to coincide with peak movement periods when animal dispersed seeds have the greatest chance of reaching distant locations. The night forest's role as a refuge extends to providing safe passage for animals that must travel between distant habitats during their daily or seasonal activities. Many species that would be vulnerable to predation during daylight hours use the cover of darkness to move between feeding areas, nesting sites, and seasonal habitats. These movement corridors become highways of biological activity during peak travel periods, with dozens of species sharing the same routes at different times throughout the night. Seasonal migrations create temporary surges in night forest activity that can dramatically alter the acoustic and chemical environment for brief periods. The arrival of thousands of migrating birds transforms quiet forest areas into bustling thoroughfares filled with calls, wing beats, and the sounds of intensive feeding as travelers replenish their energy reserves. These migration events often trigger increased activity among resident forest species, creating brief periods of exceptional biological diversity and activity. The timing of these migration events demonstrates the remarkable precision with which many species coordinate their activities with environmental conditions. Animals appear to possess internal calendars that integrate information about day length, temperature patterns, weather systems, and food availability to determine optimal timing for long-distance travel. This biological scheduling allows them to take advantage of favorable conditions that may occur infrequently and unpredictably. Plant reproduction in the night forest follows equally precise timing mechanisms that coordinate flowering and seed production with pollinator life cycles and optimal environmental conditions. Many species accumulate energy and resources over extended periods before producing flowers or seeds during brief windows when conditions are perfect for reproductive success. A night-blooming cereus might grow for years before producing its spectacular flowers, which open for just one night before closing permanently. These reproductive strategies often involve remarkable coordination between multiple species that depend on each other for successful reproduction. When a particular moth species emerges in large numbers, multiple plant species may time their flowering to coincide with peak pollinator availability. This synchronization requires precise biological timing mechanisms that account for multiple environmental variables and the life cycles of other species. The chemical ecology of the night forest operates through molecular communication systems that create invisible information networks throughout the ecosystem. Scent trails laid down by various animals persist for extended periods, providing navigation aids and territorial markers that guide movement patterns and social interactions. These chemical messages can convey detailed information about individual identity, reproductive status, health condition, and recent activities to other members of the same species. Different animal species use distinct chemical communication systems that operate simultaneously in the same physical space without interference. A single tree trunk might carry scent markings from multiple mammal species, each leaving messages intended for their own kind while remaining largely undetectable to other species. The result is a complex chemical landscape that provides detailed information to those equipped to interpret it while remaining completely hidden from human perception. The preservation of night forest ecosystems requires understanding and protecting the complex web of relationships that make these communities function. The loss of any key species can trigger cascading effects that ripple throughout the entire system, potentially leading to the collapse of partnerships that took millions of years to develop. Nocturnal pollinators, for example, may be essential for the reproduction of plants that serve as food sources for entirely different groups of animals, creating indirect dependencies that span multiple levels of the food web. Human activities that introduce artificial lighting into forest areas can disrupt these carefully balanced relationships in ways that may not become apparent for years or decades. Even small amounts of artificial light can interfere with navigation systems, mating behaviors, and feeding patterns that depend on natural darkness. The effects of light pollution can cascade through forest communities, altering relationships between species and potentially leading to local extinctions of particularly sensitive nocturnal creatures. Climate change adds additional stresses to night forest ecosystems by altering the temperature and moisture conditions that many species depend upon for successful reproduction, and survival species that have evolved precise timing mechanisms for activities like flowering, migration, and hibernation may find themselves out of synchronization with the environmental conditions they require. The resilience of these communities depends largely on their genetic diversity and their connections to larger landscape networks that provide opportunities for adaptation and recolonization. As we witness these intricate nocturnal relationships unfolding in the darkness around us, we begin to comprehend that the night forest represents far more than simply the absence of daylight activity. This is a parallel universe of biological interactions operating according to its own rhythms and relationships, creating forms of beauty and complexity that exist nowhere else in nature. The partnerships, communications, and cooperative behaviors that flourish in darkness remind us that some of life's most sophisticated achievements occur in the quiet hours when the human world sleeps, unaware of the profound dramas of survival and cooperation unfolding in the shadows that surround our illuminated lives. As the forest settles into its deepest nocturnal rhythms, we encounter phenomena that exist at the very boundaries of scientific understanding. Here, in these moments when darkness achieves its most complete dominion, the forest reveals secrets that have remained hidden for millennia, waiting for those patient enough to observe and wise enough to listen. The electromagnetic environment of the night forest operates according to principles that most humans never experience. Without the constant interference of artificial electrical fields that permeate our modern world, the forest becomes a sanctuary where natural electromagnetic phenomena can express themselves with startling clarity. Many nocturnal creatures possess sensory capabilities that allow them to detect and interpret these subtle electrical signatures, using them for navigation, communication, and prey detection in ways that seem almost supernatural to our technologically dependent civilization. Certain fish species that venture into forest streams during nighttime hours demonstrate remarkable electroreception abilities, detecting the minute electrical fields generated by the nervous systems of potential prey hidden beneath rocks or buried in sediment. These same electrical sensing capabilities allow them to navigate in complete darkness, following the electromagnetic signatures of underwater obstacles and current patterns that would be invisible to creatures dependent on vision. The magnetic properties of the night forest create navigation aids that operate continuously throughout the darkness. Iron-rich minerals in rock formations generate subtle magnetic anomalies that serve as landmarks for creatures capable of detecting them. Migratory animals use these geological features as waypoints during their journeys, creating mental maps based on magnetic signatures rather than visual references. Some species appear to memorize entire magnetic landscapes, allowing them to navigate with precision across territories they may visit only once or twice each year. The interaction between the Earth's magnetic field and the forest's metallic mineral content creates localized variations that experienced forest dwellers learn to recognize and exploit. Certain areas develop distinctive magnetic signatures that serve as gathering places for multiple species, while others create magnetic barriers that some creatures avoid instinctively. These invisible boundaries influence animal movement patterns in ways that shape the entire structure of forest communities. Plant root systems contribute to these electromagnetic phenomena through their interactions with groundwater and mineral deposits. Large trees with extensive root networks can alter local electrical conductivity patterns, creating electromagnetic shadows and enhancement zones that affect the behavior of sensitive species. Some animals appear to seek out or avoid these electromagnetically modified areas, suggesting that they can perceive electrical field variations that remain completely undetectable to human senses. The acoustic properties of the night forest create resonance phenomena that exist nowhere else in nature. The specific combination of tree spacing, canopy density, and topographical features creates natural amphitheaters, where certain frequencies are amplified, while others are absorbed or deflected. Nocturnal creatures have learned to exploit these acoustic sweet spots for long-distance communication, positioning themselves in locations where their calls will carry furthest with minimal energy expenditure. Some forest clearings function as natural acoustic focusing devices, concentrating sound waves from multiple directions into zones where even the quietest calls become clearly audible. Animals appear to recognize these acoustic advantages, with many species establishing territorial boundaries that include access to these natural communication enhancement areas. The competition for prime acoustic real estate can be as intense as competition for food sources or nesting sites. The physics of sound transmission through the night forest changes dramatically with atmospheric conditions, creating opportunities for acoustic communication that exist only under specific circumstances. Temperature inversions can create acoustic ducting effects that allow sounds to travel much further than normal, while high humidity conditions can enhance the clarity and carrying power of certain frequencies. Experienced nocturnal communicators appear to monitor these atmospheric changes and adjust their calling behavior to take advantage of optimal transmission conditions. Wind patterns that develop during the night hours create complex acoustic environments where sounds can be channeled, focused, or completely blocked depending on their source location and frequency characteristics. Some creatures position themselves to take advantage of wind-created acoustic shadows that hide their movements from potential predators, while others use wind-enhanced transmission zones to broadcast territorial or mating calls across vast distances. The chemical signatures that permeate the night forest air create olfactory landscapes of extraordinary complexity and precision. Each plant species contributes distinct molecular compounds to the atmosphere, creating scent profiles that change throughout the night as different plants release different chemicals in response to temperature, humidity, and biological rhythms. The result is an ever-changing olfactory environment that provides detailed information about forest conditions, seasonal changes, and the activities of other organisms. Nocturnal creatures navigate through these scent landscapes with abilities that surpass the most sophisticated human detection equipment. They can identify individual trees by their chemical signatures, track the movements of other animals hours after they have passed, and detect environmental changes long before they become apparent through other senses. Some species appear to create mental maps based entirely on scent markers, allowing them to navigate familiar territories in complete darkness with speed and confidence that would be impossible using vision alone. The decomposition processes that accelerate during the cool, humid conditions of night hours release complex mixtures of organic compounds that serve multiple ecological functions simultaneously. These molecular signals can indicate food source locations to scavengers, warn of disease or contamination, and provide information about soil conditions that influences plant growth patterns. The chemical breakdown of organic matter creates a continuous stream of information that flows through the forest atmosphere, like an invisible river of data. Certain plant species time their chemical releases to coincide with specific atmospheric conditions that occur primarily during night hours. They may release defensive compounds when humidity levels indicate optimal conditions for fungal growth, or produce attractive scents when temperature and air movement patterns favor long-distance dispersal to potential pollinators. This chemical timing requires sophisticated internal monitoring systems that integrate multiple environmental variables to determine optimal release schedules. The moisture dynamics of the night forest create temporary ecosystems that exist in states of constant flux between formation and dissolution. Fog that develops in valleys and lowlands transforms familiar forest areas into otherworldly environments where visibility drops to mere feet and sound transmission changes dramatically. These fog events create unique hunting opportunities for some species while providing protective cover for others, fundamentally altering the balance of predator-prey relationships for the duration of the weather phenomenon. The formation and movement of fog through forest valleys follows predictable patterns that experienced nocturnal hunters learn to anticipate and exploit. Some predators position themselves along the edges of fog banks, where visibility gradients create advantages for creatures adapted to hunt in low-light conditions. Others use fog cover to approach prey animals that would normally detect their presence from much greater distances. Dew formation. During the night hours, creates microscopic aquatic environments on virtually every surface in the forest. These temporary water features support communities of microorganisms that play crucial roles in nutrient cycling and decomposition processes. Some larger creatures have learned to exploit these ephemeral water sources, timing their activities to coincide with peak dew formation periods, when drinking water becomes available in locations where it would never exist during daylight hours. The optical properties of dew-covered surfaces create visual phenomena that exist only during specific combinations of darkness and moisture conditions. Spiderwebs outlined in dewdrops become visible works of art that reveal the extraordinary geometric precision of their creators. These temporary displays often serve as navigation aids for other forest creatures who learn to recognize the patterns and use them as landmarks during their nocturnal travels. Plant leaves covered in dew can function as natural mirrors, reflecting whatever minimal light is available and creating subtle illumination patterns that guide the movements of light-sensitive creatures. Some nocturnal pollinators appear to use these reflective surfaces to locate flowers more efficiently, following chains of dew-covered leaves that lead to their nectar sources, like breadcrumbs marking a trail through the darkness. The thermal stratification that develops in the night forest creates three-dimensional temperature gradients that influence air movement, moisture distribution, and animal behavior patterns. Cold air settling in valleys and depressions creates temperature differentials that can span several degrees within short distances, effectively dividing the forest into distinct thermal zones that different species prefer for their nighttime activities. Some creatures actively seek out specific temperature zones for thermoregulation, moving vertically through the forest canopy or horizontally across topographical variations to maintain optimal body temperatures with minimal energy expenditure. Others exploit temperature boundaries as hunting grounds, positioning themselves along thermal gradients where prey animals are likely to concentrate or travel between different temperature zones. The interaction between thermal layers and atmospheric moisture creates convection currents that transport scents, sounds, and even small organisms vertically through the forest ecosystem. These invisible elevators allow chemical signals produced at ground level to reach the forest canopy, while compounds released by canopy-dwelling creatures can descend to influence ground-level activities. The result is a three-dimensional communication network that connects all levels of the forest community. Nocturnal creatures that are capable of flight have learned to exploit these thermal currents for energy-efficient transportation throughout their territories. Bats riding thermal updrafts can cover vast distances while expending minimal energy on wing-powered flight, allowing them to focus their metabolic resources on the demanding work of echolocation and prey capture. Birds that migrate during night hours use similar thermal navigation techniques to maintain their flight paths while conserving energy for long-distance travel. The underground water systems that flow beneath the night forest create acoustic and vibrational signatures that some surface-dwelling creatures can detect and interpret. The sound of water moving through underground channels, caverns, and rock formations creates subtle vibrations that travel through the earth and can be sensed by animals with appropriate adaptations. These geological soundscapes provide information about water source locations, underground territory boundaries, and seasonal changes in groundwater levels. Some fossorial species that spend portions of their lives underground emerge during night hours to exploit the enhanced vibrational communication opportunities that occur when surface activity levels are reduced. They can detect the movements of other underground creatures from considerable distances, coordinate their own movements to avoid conflicts, and locate optimal digging sites based on soil conditions indicated by vibrational signatures. The root systems of large trees create extensive underground networks that function as natural seismic detection systems, transmitting vibrations from disturbances occurring anywhere within their root zone. Animals that live in close association with these trees may benefit from early warning systems that alert them to approaching danger long before it becomes visible or audible through conventional senses. This partnership between plants and animals extends the sensory capabilities of both participants beyond what either could achieve independently. Seasonal changes in underground water flow patterns create variations in these vibrational communication systems that reflect broader environmental changes occurring throughout the forest ecosystem. Animals that depend on these underground signals must adapt their communication and navigation strategies as water levels rise and fall, underground channels change course, and soil conditions alter the transmission properties of the Earth itself. The night forest's role as a laboratory for evolutionary experimentation becomes most apparent during the quiet hours when selection pressures operate with particular intensity. Creatures that can survive and reproduce successfully in conditions of limited visibility, reduced temperature, and altered resource availability demonstrate adaptations that may represent the cutting edge of evolutionary development. These nocturnal specialists often possess sensory capabilities, behavioral strategies, and physiological adaptations that surpass anything found in their diurnal relatives. Genetic variations that might prove disadvantageous during daylight hours sometimes confer significant survival advantages in darkness, allowing rare traits to persist and potentially spread through populations over time. The night forest serves as a refuge for biological diversity that might otherwise be eliminated by the selection pressures operating during daylight hours, maintaining genetic reservoirs that could prove crucial for species adaptation to future environmental changes. Hybrid zones where different species or subspecies interbreed often show increased activity during night hours, when reduced visibility allows individuals with intermediate characteristics to avoid discrimination that might prevent successful mating during daylight. These nighttime hybridization events contribute to genetic mixing that can produce offspring with novel combinations of traits, potentially leading to the development of new species or subspecies adapted to specific nocturnal niches. The behavioral innovations that emerge in response to nighttime challenges often represent creative solutions to problems that have no daytime equivalents. Animals that learn to exploit unique opportunities available only in darkness may develop entirely new behavioral repertoires that get passed to their offspring through learning and cultural transmission. These nocturnal innovations can spread through populations rapidly when they provide significant survival advantages, leading to behavioral evolution that occurs much faster than genetic change. The night forest's function as a biological time machine becomes evident when we consider how many of its inhabitants represent evolutionary lineages that have remained virtually unchanged for millions of years. Nocturnal environments may provide stable conditions that reduce the selection pressures driving evolutionary change, allowing ancient life forms to persist in essentially their original states, while their diurnal relatives undergo continuous adaptation to changing daylight environments. Some nocturnal species appear to represent evolutionary experiments that were successful in darkness, but never expanded into daylight niches, remaining as specialized creatures perfectly adapted to nighttime conditions, but unable to compete in the broader world beyond their shadowy realm. These evolutionary specialists demonstrate the power of adaptation to produce remarkable creatures that exist nowhere else in nature, living testaments to the creative force of natural selection operating under extreme constraints. The study of these nocturnal evolutionary patterns provides insights into fundamental biological processes that operate differently in darkness than in light. Researchers are discovering that many assumptions about evolution, adaptation, and species development may apply primarily to diurnal creatures, while nocturnal life operates according to different principles that produce different outcomes. The night forest serves as a natural laboratory where these alternative evolutionary pathways can be observed and studied in their original context. Conservation efforts focused on nocturnal ecosystems require understanding and protecting not just individual species, but the complex web of relationships and environmental conditions that allow night forest communities to function. The loss of darkness itself, through light pollution and habitat fragmentation, represents a new category of environmental threat that can destroy nocturnal ecosystems, even when the physical habitat remains intact. Protecting the night forest means preserving not just trees and wildlife, but the darkness that makes their unique way of life possible. The future of night forest ecosystems depends on maintaining the delicate balance of conditions that have allowed these remarkable communities to develop over millions of years. As human activities continue to expand and intensify, the last refugees of true darkness become increasingly precious, representing irreplaceable reservoirs of biological diversity and evolutionary potential that exist nowhere else on Earth. The night forest reminds us that some of life's most extraordinary achievements occur in places and times where human influence has not yet penetrated. In the quiet hours, when darkness allows nature to reveal its deepest secrets to those who take the time to listen and observe. In these final hours before dawn, when the night forest reaches its deepest state of quiet mystery, we encounter phenomena that exist at the very edge of perception. The forest transforms into something that transcends our everyday understanding of what nature can achieve, revealing capabilities and relationships that seem to belong more to the realm of dreams than to the solid world we think we know. The air itself becomes different during these profound hours, taking on an almost liquid quality that carries scents and sounds with supernatural clarity. Molecules that would dissipate quickly in the turbulent atmosphere of day linger in the still night air, creating invisible trails of information that persist for hours. A fox passing through the forest leaves behind a chemical signature so precise that another fox following the same path hours later can determine not only which direction the first animal traveled, but also its approximate age, health status, and recent diet. These molecular highways crisscross the forest in patterns of bewildering complexity, creating an information network that operates entirely through chemistry rather than sight or sound. Different species contribute their own unique signatures to this atmospheric library, building layers of data that accumulate throughout the night hours. By dawn, the forest air contains a complete record of every creature that moved through the darkness, written in a language of molecules that only the most sensitive noses can interpret. The trees themselves participate in this chemical communication system through processes that become active only during the deepest night hours. Ancient oaks and maples release compounds that serve as identification markers, allowing animals to navigate by scent even when familiar visual landmarks disappear into darkness. These tree signatures remain consistent across seasons and years, creating permanent olfactory landmarks that guide generations of forest dwellers through their nocturnal journeys. Some plant species have evolved the ability to modify their chemical output based on the activities occurring around them. A tree, being climbed by nocturnal mammals, might alter its bark chemistry to discourage insects that could damage its trunk, while simultaneously releasing attractant compounds that draw beneficial species to clean harmful organisms from its surface. This real-time chemical adjustment requires sophisticated monitoring systems that detect and respond to biological activity occurring throughout the tree's immediate environment. The forest floor during these deep hours becomes a stage for microscopic dramas that dwarf in complexity anything visible to the naked eye. Fungal networks extend their reach through soil and leaf litter, forming temporary connections that may last only a few hours, but serve crucial functions in nutrient exchange and communication between widely separated plants. These ephemeral links create a dynamic underground internet that constantly reorganizes itself based on the changing needs of the forest community. Bacterial communities that remain dormant during warmer daylight hours spring into intense activity as temperatures drop and humidity rises. These microscopic recyclers can process organic matter at rates that increase exponentially under optimal nighttime conditions, transforming dead plant and animal material into forms that living organisms can use. The chemical reactions they perform release energy that contributes measurably to the forest's nighttime warmth, creating localized temperature variations that influence the behavior of larger creatures. The acoustic environment of the deepest night hours reveals layers of sound that exist nowhere else in nature. With wind reduced to barely perceptible movements and most daytime noise sources eliminated, the forest becomes capable of transmitting sounds across distances that would be impossible during active daylight hours. The crack of a twig breaking underfoot can carry for over a mile through the still air, while the softest animal calls become audible from remarkable distances. Some creatures have learned to exploit these enhanced acoustic conditions for communication systems that operate only during the quietest portions of the night. Certain owl species produce calls so quiet that they would be completely masked by normal forest sounds. But in the profound stillness of deep night hours, these whisper-soft vocalizations can coordinate hunting activities across territories spanning several square miles. The calls are so subtle that researchers often detect them only through electronic amplification. Yet they convey complex information about prey locations, territorial boundaries, and mating opportunities. The physics of sound transmission changes dramatically during these quiet hours, creating acoustic phenomena that seem to defy normal expectations. Sounds can follow curved paths around obstacles, be focused and amplified by natural forest structures, and even be reflected off atmospheric layers to reach locations that should be acoustically shadowed. Animals that understand these acoustic properties can communicate around corners, over hills, and through dense vegetation with efficiency that approaches telepathy. Temperature variations that develop during the deepest night hours create microclimates within microclimates, establishing thermal zones so specific that they may encompass areas no larger than a few square feet. These temperature pockets serve as refuges for creatures with particular thermal requirements, allowing species with narrow temperature tolerances to survive in locations where average conditions would be unsuitable. Some insects complete their entire life cycles within these thermal niches, never venturing into areas where temperature variations would prove fatal. The formation of these thermal microenvironments follows principles that connect the forest floor directly to astronomical phenomena occurring far beyond Earth's atmosphere. Clear nights allow maximum radiational cooling, creating temperature drops that can vary significantly based on exposure to the sky, proximity to thermal masses like large rocks or tree trunks, and elevation differences measured in inches rather than feet. Animals learn to read these thermal landscapes with precision that allows them to maintain optimal body temperatures while expending minimal energy on thermoregulation. Ground-dwelling creatures exploit these temperature variations for energy conservation strategies that border on suspended animation. Some species can lower their metabolic rates dramatically during the coldest portions of the night, effectively hibernating for a few hours before returning to full activity as temperatures begin to rise toward dawn. This micro-hibernation allows them to survive extended periods without food while maintaining the alertness necessary to avoid predation. And so, our gentle journey through the night forest draws to a close as the first pale hints of dawn begin to touch the eastern sky. We have wandered together through shadows and silence, discovering a world that exists parallel to our own, yet remains largely hidden from human awareness. The creatures we have met, the phenomena we have witnessed, and the intricate relationships we have observed remind us that even in our modern illuminated world, there are still places where ancient rhythms pulse undisturbed and where life unfolds according to principles far older than civilization itself. May these quiet secrets of the forest night bring you peace, and may you carry with you always the knowledge that somewhere in the darkness, this remarkable world continues its patient dance of survival, cooperation, and renewal.